across the pond. Let's hop across the pond. So, there's an election coming up in the UK, December 12th. Corbyn has come up with documents where he says they're going to sell off the NHS. Now, if you're a part of the United States, you say he's a right-winger. Of course he's going to sell off the NHS. Right. But in the UK, they give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, well, he said he's not going to do it. Why do you believe that? Look across your seas for the moment and look at the state of our healthcare system. And these right-wingers that try so hard to make sure that it doesn't budge any inch towards the NHS, which has the #1 healthcare system in the world. The U.S. is trying to get their hands on that NHS and try to get their hands either selling you higher drugs or privatizing some of the businesses that you guys have. A recent report came out and said like billions, I think they said $10 billion have been spent from the standpoint of privatizing the NHS, where those companies were able to get their hands on it and the British government was paying for it. So don't believe the hype. And with the new documents out, Corbyn is betting the farm on the NHS. Just like Sanders, to some degree, is betting the farm on Medicare for all. The Labour has cut into the Tory lead. Now, I was shocked by this. Because in my head, Labour has a hard way to go. Like, honestly. But they cut into the lead. Labour narrows the gap. The Labour Party gained on the ruling Conservatives in 4 of 5 polls with 2 weeks into the UK elections. With the vote on the 12th, BMG research poll for The Independent on Saturday showed that support for the Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Conservatives slipped 2 points to 39%, while backing for Corbyn's Labour jumped 5 to 33%. Now, the catch is, though, when you look at the other polls, this looks rough. That's 10 points. That's, 15 points? That's 9 points. And that is, 13 points.
Yeah.
Now, the Lib Dems are pulling in some of this vote. The Brexit Party tally has gone down because the moment that Boris Johnson comes out with his Brexit plan, which is a hard Brexit, well, the Brexit Party loses steam. At that point, it's like, why do I have to vote for the Brexit Party when the Conservative Party is doing what I want in Brexit? The Labour Party has that dinner bell around their neck of, hey, are you leaving? We're going to put it to another referendum. And we're going to give Scotland a referendum. You're going to have 2 referendums? Yeah, but it's not going to be soon. And the SNP is like, if you want our support, you're going to have a referendum, buddy. Essentially, we're kingmakers.
Yeah.
But they're predicting that Tories end up with somewhat of a commanding lead. What some people say is fighting for is a hung parliament. Meaning their argument is the best that Labour can do is a hung parliament. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know it seems like Labour has a hard way to go. However, it does seem like Corbyn has cut into the lead. Now, it is unclear on what the terrorist attack is going to play into this.
You mean the stabbing?
The stabbing, right. The guy gets out of prison early. He goes on a stabbing run. Britain has problems with stabbings in general. The Tories have had austerity cuts where they've cut through the police forces, the NHS, etc., etc. And this guy gets out, goes on a stabbing spree, pretends as if, I think he had a bomb or something, and then
that's when they shot him.
They shot him. Look, the Tories, it's unclear what that's going to do to the polls. Meaning each party is pointing fingers. Labour is like, that's the Tories' fault. The Tories are saying that's Labour's fault. Now, the Tories have been in power for like 10 years or something, like 8 or 9 years. So the notion that you're going to point finger at Labour and say it's their fault is rather ludicrous. I don't buy that at all. And again, it's been all the austerity measures that has been put into place from the standpoint of the Tory government. If that was America, that would have been gunfire.
Yeah. Oh, it would have been a lot more people to lose their lives.
And it would have been more than 2. And I watched that and I think, wow, they're flipping out over 2 people. I know that sounds fucked up. But we have...
Because in comparison to what would have happened in the States, you're like, oh, wow, they're lucky.
They're lucky, yeah.
They got away with 2 lives being lost as opposed to,
in the States, somebody would have walked into a school
that we regularly see here in the States.
They would have walked into a school, they would have pulled out a gun, and they would have opened fire. Or they would have walked into a dance club, they would have pulled out a gun, or they would have opened fire. Or they would have walked into a park, they would have pulled out a gun, and they would have opened fire. Or they would just sit in their house, and they would shoot through their wall, and open...
Yeah.
We are awash in guns. I had a conversation with a Brit one time when I was in, I forget the airport. It wasn't Qatar. It was one of those, Bahrain or something. And he asked me, he said, why on earth do you guys allow guns like that? And he's looking at me like, that's like, I can't believe your country would do that. And I said, how do you stop guns from coming into the country at that point? And I said, look at our borders. Like, you're talking about Canada, you're talking about California, you're talking about, it's a massive country that is already awash in guns. How do you stop that the moment that
get rid of guns?
Yeah, how do you get rid of it in those ways? He said we had one mass shooting and that was the end of it. They nixed it. Now, by the same token, I made the point to him that the reason that is in our Constitution to some degree is in part because of your country. It was. Part of it is the Second Amendment. Is part of it is slave patrols, but this notion of pushing back against the government and all this other stuff.
The right to form militias.
Yeah, I was like, the right to form militias, I think, had more to do with slave stuff. But this notion of quartering and fighting back against the king and all this stuff, I was like, to some degree, dude, this is your fault. But that said, if that was the United States, that would have been far, far worse. We see these mass shootings almost every day. And by mass shootings, just mean multiple people being caught in some kind of gunfire.
Yeah.
And it's perpetual. Like, it never stops. And so you see something like that in the UK, and you see all of these eyes on something. You're like, oh my God. I thought, well, guns are illegal in the UK, so how on earth did somebody get a gun? Because I thought this was some kind of gunfight. Right. And then it's like stabbings. And it's like, oh God, that's horrible, but less horrible than I would expect it to be if it was in the States.
Yeah.
Even that, we are their darker brother.
Paul X says you ban the manufacturers.
Yeah, but that's an end run. Like, that's an end run around the Second Amendment. Like, if it's one thing if you deal with the Second Amendment directly. It's another thing if you say we're going to go after manufacturers. It's like, well, how are you going to go after manufacturers when they have a legal right to make those weapons or make those guns? Like, if you say the Second Amendment is null and void, all right, fair enough. And then you proceed from there. But the other way, that was the Hillary Clinton argument, where she was like, well, let's just go after the manufacturers with lawsuits. And it's like, well, you can't go after manufacturers with lawsuits. Either it's illegal or it's not.
Right.
How do you ban the manufacturers for something? And again, if you're banning the manufacturers, you are, in fact, saying it is against the law to do something that pertains to guns. How do you have an affirmative right from the standpoint of the Second Amendment, but not the ability to get the weapons? Yeah. Like, this stuff gets a little dicey. Also, I keep making the point, whether you have a gun or whether you have a knife, why is the impetus there? Now,
all right, let's get to the root of what's causing these people to want to go out and harm someone at all.
Yes.
Regardless of whether or not it's a gun, a stick, or a knife.
Now, in this case, the guy was a terrorist.
Well, there's that.
There's that. And there are two thoughts. One is, you have to make sure your society is safe. First point. Second point, we're doing things that are making us less safe.
You're making people angry.
We're making our own terrorists. We're making our monsters. It's, I would say drop food instead of bombs, but that's me. I'm a lefty in this stuff. But either way, this is problematic. And now they're looking at reviewing all of these processes and all of these people who were let off in this way. Because this guy got off on kind of an automatic let out. Mm-hmm. And they're like attacking that. And it's like, yeah, but whether he was let out in 4 years or 8 years isn't your issue the exact same.
It wasn't a life sentence, so he was going to be out either way.
He was going to be out either way. So what do you, like, the arguments they're making is almost like an argument to keep him in forever. I mean, when they're like, well, that guy's a terrorist, so you shouldn't let him out in 4 years. Okay, what about the 8-year sentence that he was going to get? Well, yeah, in 8 you can let him out. So you believe that he's somehow materially different in 4 years than he is in 8 years? Yeah, he's rehabilitated in the extra 4. No, he's not. I guess my point is, what's, like, even for pedophiles, now they're like, we need to review these things for pedophiles also.
So are they going to be going back and reviewing other cases for people who were let out in this kind of...
Yeah, they are.
I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah.
Like a policy to...
It's automatic...
early release kind
automatic of early release or something. But again, I still make this argument, like, or make the point, what's the difference? If he was let out in 4 years or 8 years, yes, he served a longer sentence. But what does it materially mean for what he would have done? Meaning, do they honestly believe that he would have not done the ninth crime in 8 years, but he would do it in 4?
It's just kind of trying to blame somebody for what happened.
Yeah, they're trying to come up with an excuse. I mean, but even Galloway was saying that. I guess what I'm saying, I'm asking something basic. If their argument is we can't let him out in 4, and we shouldn't have had the automatic release. Okay. So are you arguing that you shouldn't let them out at all?
Like, what do you recommend?
What do you recommend? I mean, the argument doesn't make sense. Oh, we shouldn't have let him out in 4 years. He should have served his entire sentence of 8 years or 10 years. Because at that point, he wouldn't have never did this knife crime.
MacArthur says, I blame the GOP for the gun problems.
In part, yes. But, I mean, the Democratic Party also said just send prayers.
Yeah.
You don't remember that? It's like, don't wade into the send prayers. I blame the GOP in part, yes. I blame them in part. But if the country wasn't under economic stress in that way, does it behave in the same way? Like, is the gun thing an issue if our economics wasn't so screwed up where people are in this kind of desperate situation?
Well, we've had the conversation before about the state of your life and what you're willing to do.
Right.
If I am
your life is
living
going well,
a good life and I have a decent income, my family is happy, they are provided for, I am secure in my life, am I going to go out and ruin everything? As opposed to someone who is homeless or they've lost family or, they've been...
Well, they're in difficult straits.
Right.
Borrowing from Peter to pay Paul.
Right, that's what I'm saying. They're struggling.
Yeah.
It literally is, I have less to lose.
I think that's what it is. I mean, in some respects, I do think that's what it is. I mean, look, I think not everybody's wrapped tight. And in a country in 300 million, there's always going to be a probability that is somewhat off. And you have that country of 300 million with a probability of some off awash in guns. So let's take a certain distribution of people and say, okay, these people aren't wrapped tight. These people will fuck up regardless. Then you have others who are wrapped tight under normal situations. Meaning in a certain environment, they don't behave in the way that they might behave in our current situation, meaning under this level of stress and that type of stuff. I blame somewhat of the GOP. I blame the political, state in and of itself to some degree, but we allow it. I mean, we accept it as a cultural tradition of sorts, kind of like bullfighting, where it's like these guys go out there where they murder a bull, and they're like, yes, a reba, or whatever. That is a reba. That's the wrong word. Oh, that's his Mexican. That's Spanish. That's Spanish. That's Spanish. It's right. Why you try to shame me for that? You're just like, oh, that's racist by calling it a reba. You seen the cartoon with the guy with the sombrero?
That's the mouse.
Yeah.
Speedy Gonzalez.
Yeah, but he's Hispanic.
Yeah, but he wasn't a bullfighter.
I didn't say he was. I'm just saying it's Spanish. It's a Spanish tradition where they go out and murder a bull with those spikes. I see, you've drifted far away from my point. My point is in the same way that those bullfighters get out there and a rational human being will look at that and say, why are they murdering that bull in that way? Why are they torturing that bull? Rational human being looks at it and says, why do you have the guns in that way? What are you so terrified of? Like, why are you so scared that you require all of these weapons to be just kind of awash in your society in this way? Now, inside the society, it says, Second Amendment. So what? They say that as if that matters. Like, so what? You wrote down in the Second Amendment about militias. What that got to do with you running around with guns?
What's going on now in 2019? Militias didn't have the...
Yeah, none of you are militias. It's one thing if you guys join militias. Fair enough. And then they can put you on like a hate group for joining the militias. But why? Why are you so scared? That's never interrogated. It's just kind of assumed we have a Second Amendment. And because somebody wrote that down...
I get all the guns I want.
Right, and it must be this way. And it's like...
And it is my right to bear arms, to carry these
it was the right
automatic
for people to
weapons.
Keep slaves at one point also. Things change. But we look at it as this weird cultural tradition and, ignore the consequences of it. So, I don't know. I've gotten to the point where I've become somewhat desensitized to the gun violence in the country. And every time it happens, it just...
That's the worst thing about it. It's like you see it so often, it's not as shocking. It's,
Well, it is...
It doesn't even make news as much
anymore. It is infinitely conceivable that it will happen again. And as such, why am I going to, get flustered over something that is infinitely true it will happen again? I'm just saying. But the knife crime in Britain, though, they were shocked as shit over that.
Somebody said they're going to try to ban knives now.
Good luck. Good luck.
Cooking, slicing.
But there were a lot of knife crime in the UK. This wasn't the only one. I mean, people were getting stabbed in broad daylight in the UK. And again, they were throwing this at the Conservatives because it was like you guys were cutting cops. And what's her name would get up in the well of Parliament and like, well, we did so and so, we invested this much into our police force, and there's more about it than just putting people on the streets. And it was like, dude, people are being stabbed. What the fuck are you talking about? But needless to say, we don't know who this is going to benefit. That sounds callous, but we're in an election period, so it kind of is what it is.
Capitalizing off of those kind of tragedies.
Yeah. The catch here is it seems that Jeremy Corbyn may be grabbing and holding on to the NHS thing and doubling down on that as his defense. Because, look, I don't think the Tories can be trusted with the NHS. I don't know why anybody would. Corbyn's issue is Brexit. Whether people can just kind of overlook his position on Brexit to go to the position of the NHS. But if they do, this is almost a de facto killing of Brexit.
Yeah.
You lose something in the process. There's no win. Either way you go.